It's tempting to say that the only people who bought this hoax of Jussie Smollett being stalked and attacked by a bunch of white guys wearing MAGA hats, tempting to say that only reporters bought that all over the country, and buy it they did, hook, line, and sinker. The local media in Chicago couldn't get enough of it. The national media couldn't get enough of it. Jussie framed the story for them perfectly because, as you remember what Jussie said, wasn't just about Jussie, was it? No. It was all about the other Jussies out there. It was all about the other gangs of white people in MAGA hats roaming the country. North, south, east, west, attacking gay people, black people, every damn place you can imagine. Oh, everybody took that story hook, line, and sinker. And the people who took it the most, they're the people still holding on to the Covington story. Oh yeah, that story's still there. People are still holding on to it. Because even though we know now, we knew this from day one, anybody who watched the stupid videos, everybody knows that the fake Indian dude walked into the crowd and provoked the students, the black people, the black Israelites who make a hobby out of going around and cursing and threatening and tossing racial and sexual epithets at white people. We know all the kids from that high school did was just sit there and smile. They didn't take the bait. They didn't rise to the provocation. A lot of people figured that out. It's amazing how few people have apologized, but a lot of people figured that out. But even so, there's still some diehards on NPR, MSNBC who insist that, yeah, those white kids were at fault because they were wearing a MAGA hat. Oh yeah, that's like wearing a Ku Klux Klan outfit. That's what they say. That's what grown people say on national public radio, national programs. And so when the Jussie Smollett thing came out, that turned out to be like, wow, well, this is too good to be true. Finally, we got some proof of what we knew was happening all along, but somehow never really made it into the paper, is that white people are going around and attacking black and gay people all the time, and the cops are just looking the other way. Well, the cops had to be looking the other way, right? If this happens a bunch, never shows up in the paper. No one's getting arrested. As a matter of fact, we see the opposite. We see people wearing MAGA hats being attacked, provoked, over and over and over, threatened, over and over and over, being removed from restaurants, banned from restaurants, removed from schools, removed from the public square, all for wearing a MAGA hat. And a lot of people were okay with that. These are the same people that were just ecstatic to hear that one of their buddies, Jussie Smollett, the actor for that TV show Empire, oh yeah, he was stalked and attacked by some white dudes wearing MAGA hats. Well, now today, we learn that whole damn thing is a hoax. Yeah, all the Hollywood stars who were on Jussie's side, yeah, they're going to be very sorry about that. Why don't we just play one clip from one person just as a reminder of the pure vitriol that was directed at white people, Trump supporters, MAGA hat people, all because nobody took a second to take a deep breath and say, did that really happen?
I'm like really fired up tonight.
This is how you have to be fired up.
It feels impossible to not feel this way right now with the president and the vice president, Mike Pence, who wishes I couldn't be married. Let's just be clear. The vice president of America wishes I didn't have the love with my wife. He wanted to ban that in Indiana. He believes in conversion therapy. He has hurt LGBTQ people so badly as the government of Indiana, and I think the thing we need to know, and I hope my show Gaycation did this, in terms of connecting the dots, in terms of what happened the other day to Jussie. I don't know him personally. I sent all of my love. Connect the dots. This is what happens. If you are in a position of power and you hate people and you want to cause suffering to them, you go through the trouble, you spend your career trying to cause suffering. What do you think is going to happen? Kids are going to be abused, and they're going to kill themselves. And people are going to be beaten on the street. I have traveled the world, and I have met the most marginalized people you could meet. I am lucky to have this time and the privilege to say this. This needs to stop.
Even after the first blush, the first beat of the story, people figured out that, hey, Jussie is one of the most vitriolic, anti-Trump, anti-MAGA people on the internet. He's one of those people on his Twitter stream who goes around reminding everybody that black people are relentless victims of relentless white racism all the time, everywhere. That explains everything. That's pretty obvious to Jussie and all of his buddies. It's obvious to the millions of people that read those tweets, retweeted it, told their friends. Everybody loved this story. Why don't we read just a couple of the tweets from some of the people we put in charge of this to run this country because we trust in their judgment. How about Kamala Harris? She was Attorney General for the state of California. What did she say? Jussie Smollett is one of the kindest, most gentle human beings I know. I'm praying for his quick recovery. This was an attempted modern-day lynching. No one should have to fear for their life because of their sexuality or color of their skin. We must confront the hate. What about my buddy Joe Biden? What happened today to Jussie Smollett must never be tolerated in this country. We must stand up and demand that we no longer give this hate safe harbor, that homophobia and racism have no place on our streets or in our hearts. We are with you, Jussie. And here's from the New York Times. Jussie Smollett, one of the stars of the television show Empire, was attacked in Chicago by two assailants who yelled racial and homophobic slurs, period. Wow. They didn't even do the perfunctory alleged, it might have happened. They were just all in right from the beginning. God, they loved it. How about our girl Nancy Pelosi? The racist, homophobic attack on Jussie Smollett is an affront to our humanity. No one should be attacked for who they are or whom they love. I pray that Jussie has a speedy recovery and that justice is served. May we all commit to ending this hate once and for all. And let's not forget our best buddy of all, Cory Booker. The vicious attack on actor Jussie Smollett was an attempted modern-day lynching. I'm glad he's safe. To those in Congress who don't feel the need, the urgency to pass our anti-lynching bill designated lynching as a federal hate crime, I urge you to pay attention. That was these fake hate crimes, that's like Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Joe Biden. That's like coming down and seeing a whole bunch of presents under the Christmas tree. Except when they unwrap them, they find out they're getting a little piece of coal. Then all of a sudden they disappear. I mean, it went to the top. President Trump even had to admit in public that that's the worst thing that could happen to somebody. Even he got bullied into buying this little fairy tale. Man, but the news out of Chicago today, everything's unraveling. No, it unraveled yesterday. Today it collapsed. Remember those two shadowy dudes? Nobody knew who they were. Well, one of them turned out to be an actor from the set of Empire. The other one is the buddy of the actor. They were there. They're connected to the rope, the clothesline, the lynching rope. They're connected to the bleach. They're connected to the phone records. They're connected to every damn thing. After this thing happened, they went right to O'Hare Airport. For some reason, they took a plane to Nigeria. So they came back from Nigeria today, and they were arrested or picked up at the airport, where now they're sweating them at the police station to let them know, asking these questions, why did you do this? Anyway, let's see how the local press in Chicago, after days and days and days of being played for a sucker, let's see how they are piecing this story together now.
Is developing minute by minute here. Right now, Chicago police are questioning Jussie Smollett and a second Empire actor in the investigation into that alleged attack. Multiple sources are telling Eyewitness News that Smollett and the two men are being questioned by police for staging the attack, allegedly because his character was being written out of the show. Someone familiar with the investigation said that Smollett was a no-show for an interview earlier today with detectives, and all of this is coming on the heels of Smollett speaking out in his first media interview, taking aim at those who doubt his story.
He said, "This MAGA country punches me right in the face." So I punched his back. And then we started tussling. You know, it was very icy. And we ended up tussling by the stairs, fighting. There was a second person involved who was kicking me in my back.
A harrowing account of what Empire actor Jussie Smollett says happened to him in Chicago's Streeterville neighborhood last month. As his television show continues to shoot this evening on the Mag Mile, police are now questioning the two people seen in this surveillance photo. One, an actor on Empire. And in a raid on their home, they retrieved shoes, electronic devices, and other items to see whether the two played a role in the assault. Just this afternoon, the attorney for one of those persons of interest was seen leaving Area Central Police Department. Smollett said today these two are his attackers.
I don't have any doubt in my mind that that's them. Never did.
But Chicago police say there is no evidence the persons of interest were involved in that physical attack described by Smollett. The actor and LGBTQ activist says a racially motivated, bigoted attack left him with cuts and bruises to his face and ribs, a noose around his neck, and bleach poured over his body.
I understand how difficult it will be to find them, but I still want to believe with everything that has happened that there's something called justice.
Now, obviously, this case is still evolving. Chicago police say they cannot confirm the identities of those being questioned in the case to protect the integrity of the investigation, and those identities will not be released right at this time.
Rabia, the attorney for those two persons of interest, she was with both of those men for much of the day. She says that both of them were picked up at O'Hare last night at Customs. They were actually in Nigeria visiting family, and at some point last night, Chicago police were also at their family's home and ransacked it. I want to show you some of that video from inside the home. We were allowed in. This is that video. I spoke with a family member who was inside at the time. She says that she heard loud banging at the front door, and then that door came crashing down. A flood of CPD officers followed. She says that she was patted down by an officer. She was asked many questions, and the woman says that officers also took a number of items from the home, items like electronics, shoes, receipts, bleach, a red hat, and other household items. Both men do know Smollett, according to their attorney. Both men have actually appeared as extras on the show Empire, and claims that both men do not understand why they were picked up. I spoke with her just moments ago.
The people of interest, my clients, they do know Jussie. They have worked with him on Empire. My preliminary investigations show that on set it's very tight. They're all very cordial with each other. So they're baffled why they are people of interest.
And the surveillance image that you see now, that was released by Chicago police. That image was considered persons of interest. Right now, Chicago police saying that those persons of interest, they are not suspects, but they are believed to be in the area, that those men were in the area of the time that crime occurred. So again, that is the image that Chicago police released shortly after this, after going through hours of surveillance footage. But again, at this point, there is no actual surveillance camera footage of the alleged attack that Jussie Smollett has described in such detail.
Of course, there was Jussie this morning with Robin Roberts. I think she's an ABC person on one of their morning shows. He's reminding everybody that, you know what, if my attackers were black, everybody would believe me. Yeah, he's got a point there, because we understand what patterns are. We understand that white people attacking black people is an extremely unusual thing. We also understand that black people attacking white people is not unusual. Capiche, Jussie? Jussie, sorry. You know, the people that have been on top of this story from the beginning are the two really terrific websites out of Chicago. One is Second City Cop Blog. It's written by cops, for cops. Lots of civilians read it. They were in on this at the beginning. And CWB Chicago, they're in on it too. They were letting people know about the out-and-out skepticism from the cops, from inside the police department, how the story wasn't adding up, how it didn't make sense, how Jussie was being strangely uncooperative. My favorite part of the Jussie story so far is, so Jussie, the cop said, "We want to see your phone records." He goes, "Okay, sure." No, at first he said, "Of course, no, you're not going to see them." Then after they pressured him for a couple days, a week, 2 weeks, came out and said, "Oh, okay, here's a spreadsheet with my phone. I took out the stuff that doesn't have anything to do with the investigation here." To their credit, and no, it's not a given that this would happen. To their credit, the cop said, "Thanks, Jussie. We're going to go subpoena these records." That's what they did. They got the records, and one cop told CWB Chicago, cop told them, like, "Listen, the numbers that he redacted, that he took off, the numbers that were missing on the spreadsheet, that's where we started. That had the most valuable information." So it turns out, the fellows were driving to and from the place in a Lyft and this and that. Damn. And so we have one more hoax. One more fairy tale of white on black violence, white on black racism. One more time, the greatest lie of our generation is exposed. Let's see how many people can stay in denial following this fairy tale. Maybe this will help. If white on black violence is largely a myth, a fairy tale, a hoax you have to make up because you just can't find it, what about black on white violence? What about black on white harassment? What about black mob violence on white people? No, we don't have to go back to 1492 when Columbus sailed the ocean blue. How about in the last 24 hours when this was on New Orleans media just yesterday?
A group of friends in town from Colorado to celebrate a birthday say their trip turned into a nightmare when a group of teens attacked them.
Amanda Roberts spoke to one of the tourists. She joins us now with the story. Gabrielle Lee says she and her friends were enjoying their time Saturday at the Chewbacca's parade and around town when a group of teenagers attacked them, putting her longtime boyfriend, Mark Whitaker Allen, in the hospital. They've all returned home to Colorado now, and Allen is recovering from facial and brain injuries after he sustained after the fight. Lee says it all started because some teens were harassing a homeless woman when one of their friends stepped in to stop the verbal attacks. And that's when, she says, things escalated. More teens poured out of a nearby party bus surrounding the group near St. Charles and Canal Street. She says Allen tried to pull his friends away from the teens to de-escalate the situation when he was punched in the side of the head, falling to the ground unconscious.
He wasn't awake and I knew not to move him. And once I saw him start moving and trying to move his head, I rolled him over and his teeth and blood were all over my hands. But luckily he was awake.
Happening right now, the search for the people who attacked a group of tourists in the heart of New Orleans. One of those tourists beaten so badly he had to go to the hospital. Good evening, I'm Katie Moore.
And I'm Tan Trung. The visitors to our city say they were good Samaritans trying to protect a homeless woman. Danny Monteverdi was able to talk with that victim despite his injuries. He's live along Canal Street where that attack happened. Danny?
Good evening, Ton. As the police continue to chase down leads in this case, the victim of that brutal attack is now preparing for his next visit to the hospital after the sudden and violent attack.
Whit Allen and his friends were living it up in New Orleans this past weekend to celebrate his 30th birthday. They spent time drinking hurricanes at Pat O's and took in the sights of Carnival as Chewbacca's rolled through the Hannity. But the fun came to a sudden and violent end early Sunday morning on Canal Street.
And when I fell into the concrete, all the teeth got pushed up into my face.
The trouble began when Alan and his friends came across a party bus near Canal in St. Charles.
The kids in the back of the bus were screaming at this homeless lady that was like sitting on the sidewalk.
One of his friends tried to step in and stop it.
Next thing I know is that all these kids, like all these guys from the bus, start popping out of the bus like one by one.
Whit Allen and his friends say they were walking in this part of Canal Street when the attack happened, and they say it happened just like that.
Like maybe 3 seconds is all that it took.
Someone in the group, which Allen and his friends say was about 20 guys, threw punches. Allen and one of his friends were hit. Allen was knocked out.
I was bleeding everywhere. There was blood, just all down my shirt.
Allen was rushed to University Medical Center where doctors treated him for a broken jaw and fractures to his face.
I pretty much lost the fourth center of my teeth, and then obviously this was like a hole completely through my lip, and I had this big hole in my chin, and then there are stitches on the inside of my lip, so yeah, it was kind of extensive.
He's back home in Denver now, but he still has months of doctors and dentist visits ahead of him.
And they're going to have to do a bone graft, and they're going to have to let that heal for probably about 9 months at least, and then they'll be able to do implants. So I can have teeth again.
And sadly, he says he probably won't be so quick to try to help someone else in need again.
In Denver, if I saw someone screaming at a bunch of homeless people, I definitely would have gotten up there and said something like, knock it off. But I'm going to think about that twice next time.
That's what racial hate looks like. Capiche? And I can't help but thinking of the other hoax. This is the second Empire star to be involved in a hoax. The first was the star of the show. I think her name's Taraji Henson. She's one of these chicks now. She's trying to just go by one name, Taraji. And so she's the head of like her family, a record company family, and they love, they fight, they argue, they love some more. And it's just because that's just how families are. Oh yeah, I forgot on this one thing that was telling about our buddy Smollett, Jussie Smollett. They tried to give him a white boyfriend. The guy's a gay actor, and he plays a gay person on the show. They tried to give him a white boyfriend on the show. He said, no, I'm not doing that. No, N-O. Then when he went to be interviewed on ABC, do you think it was a coincidence that they put a black anchor on him? Is her name Robin Roberts? Robin Roberts. They let her interview him. You remember just a couple weeks ago, what did the Huffington Post say about black women? They were the story was about rape and how black women don't report rape against them, don't report rape against anybody else they know, even if they know the perp. Because, says the Huffington Post, and this is a direct quote, black women are trained to protect the race at all costs. Isn't that the craziest thing you've ever heard? Anyway, it came from the Huffington Post, so it must be true. So there's Jussie this morning crying his eyes out to Robin Roberts. I don't think this was taped this morning. I think this was taped a few days ago, maybe before he knew the whole thing was the foundation was starting to get a little shaky. Anyway, so there's Taraji. This is a couple years ago. She tells a magazine that her son was a victim of profiling. Everybody's so eager to be a victim. Anyway, her son, she said, was driving through, I think it was Glendale. We did a big video on this. Her son was driving through Glendale. The cops pulled him over for no reason. They detained him for an hour. Then they let him go. And she was even pissed off. They didn't even give him a ticket for what they stopped him for. Oh yeah, that was absolutely racial profiling. It was so bad, she pulled her kid out of USC and put him in Howard University on the East Coast in Washington, D.C. Yeah, you remember Howard? That college where like 6 or 7 or 10 kids from the Midwest, white kids from the Midwest, were doing a tour of colleges, and they kind of accidentally ended up at Howard. So there are these white kids in the cafeteria, and they were taunted, harassed, threatened, and driven out of the cafeteria at Howard. That's the ideal. The fellas and their lovely ladies are not really into us, and they tell us whenever they can in many, many different ways. That was just one way. Anyway, so there's Taraji telling us in her way about her son. Next day, the cops in Glendale, thank God some of these cops have some common sense. They released the video. the dash cam tape, boom, right away. We see Taraji's son crossing one of those pedestrian walkways while somebody was in the walkway, somebody pushing a stroller across. So his car enters that thing. As soon as he did that, cops flipped on the old bubble machine up top, pulled him over. Cop is doing the 100% respectful official thing. They're California cops. That's how they roll most of the time. Rolls up to the window. Excuse me, sir. You do this, do that. Start talking more and more and more. All of a sudden, it becomes apparent that Taraji's son, well, maybe he's not all there. Cops talking, gets him out of the car, starts asking questions. Are you under the influence of this? Did you take any of this? If I search your car, what's going to happen? So over the next 45 minutes, we come to learn that, yeah, he's got pot in the car and he's been smoking pot and he's got pills in the car, prescription pills, to which the prescription was not for him. Pretty sure it was Adderall or one of those drugs. This is serious business. Kid easily could have gone to jail, easily, for felonies. But at some point, about halfway, 10, 15 minutes into this thing, you're getting all the audio as well. I mean, everybody's being respectful. The kid is not giving the cop a hard time. The cop is being respectful to Taraji's son. I don't think he knew there was any actors involved. And pretty soon the cop starts doing the big brother daddy thing while, Taraji's kid is doing the, okay, I'm going to see if I can get out of this thing in one piece thing. Very smart. He did. But the mother could not leave it alone. She wanted to be the victim so bad. So she started telling people. Then the real story came out. But again, before the real story came out, this other story, what's the old saying? I don't know if it was Mark Twain or not. He said, the truth is halfway around the world before, a lie can be halfway around the world before the truth gets out of bed in the morning. There was all these people so eager to latch on to this fairy tale of black victimization, white racism. I mean, it's everywhere. Now we get people on television and the radio and the newspapers. They're talking about how it's subconscious. That was Joe Biden the other day for the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. He went in front of Al Sharpton's group. And he was telling them, white people really suck. We're all a bunch of racists, except, we're getting smarter about it. Okay, I'm paraphrasing. We're getting smarter about it because we don't even do the racist stuff anymore, but it's inside of our heads, it's subconscious. There's Joe Biden doing his Karnak, the magician trick, right? Whoa, I can read what's in this envelope. And it says, white people are racists. And then you think about how crazy this whole racial thing is, how insane it is that white people like Joe Biden and other politicians like Hillary Clinton, everybody has to do their homage to Al Sharpton at his National Action Network convention. And there they were. All the candidates blew on by. That's their way of genuflecting. That's their way of hoping that Al Sharpton and everybody else won't notice they are not black. So they go in with promises of big bushel baskets about what they are going to do for the fellas, reminiscent of what Hillary and Bernie were doing during the last primary. Do you remember that? I mean, it was like an auction. 1 week they would promise this, and next week Hillary would raise the stakes, and Bernie would raise the stakes, Hillary would raise the stakes. Last number I heard out of Hillary was she was going to spend $200 billion for urban America. $200 billion. Didn't do her a bit of good. You know why? The fellas aren't really into white people. Not after electing Obama. I wonder if the Democrats have really gotten that lesson yet. So many white Democrats running for president. They must know that there's going to be a black person on that ticket, top the ticket or the first spot or the second spot. Somebody's got to know that. Maybe they don't. I don't know. And so let's have a takeaway here on the big Jussie Smollett case. It's just one more example. Again, we don't really even care that much about Jussie. We care about this, how it is exposed, this enormous grievance machinery that is always just sitting on the sidelines at the starting line on idle. And as soon as somebody flicks a switch, often erroneously, often deceitfully, the big grievance machine just takes off. All the reporters, oh no, it's all full of hate. Oh no, oh, white people suck. Oh my God, white people, they're doing it again. They're running around the country in MAGA hats, beating up black people and gay people. Oh my God, how did this ever happen? That's the story of Jussie. Just one more story. I mean, this is a bigger hoax than the Covington story. I mean, I'm actually working on a book of my 25 favorite hoaxes. I see between Covington and Jussie, we've got 2 more stories to stick in there. Is anybody connecting the dots about these hoaxes? Is anybody telling us how often these reminding us how often these high-profile cases turn out to be fairy tales? Or do they tell us different? Or do they explain to us that, okay, we got the facts wrong, but the story is straight. Oh yeah, there's an enormous amount of white racism and black victimization. So keep your eyes on the prize out there. This is just one more brick in the wall, where we're removing this brick in the wall, exposing the greatest lie of our generation, the hoax of black victimization. If you want to be a part of that, part of exposing this, I want you to share this. Like it, subscribe to this channel. Drop a few coins in the old PayPal.me/Flaherty457 account. That'll keep us going. That will support what we are doing here. And remember, we don't need to use hypotheticals. We have so many examples of these hoaxes. So many examples. So we don't need to say, if a white person, if a black person did that to a white person, nobody would give a damn, or, something like that. No, we don't need to say if. We've documented how many dozens and dozens of those attacks on white people wearing MAGA hats have we documented. Nobody really gave a damn. Now we have one fake attack on this fake actor, and the entire universe stops and starts spinning around Jussie Smollett. Nobody ever got fired for spending too much time dwelling on a fake hate crime involving white racism. No, nobody gets fired for that. Now, what you do is you get to go to a seminar and give speeches about what you learned about how white racism is everywhere, except for that one time and one place and time where it wasn't. Yeah, that's a good thing to do, because we know what happens then. No black kids will get angry.